Consider this a U.S. reconnaissance mission. Aircraft flying at great altitude over the Pacific carries out regular monitoring in global airspace. The crew is quietly keeping an eye on the instruments. And looking across the horizon, all of a sudden a flashing warning lights that indicate a fast coming up, instantaneous object, a Chinese fighter jet, seems to be slicing across the sky and putting itself in a dangerously close position before the U.S. plane. Then it does the unimaginable. This is not your typical encounter. The stakes are high. This is the geopolitical dance fighter aircraft. DC-5I is the U.S. Navy Pate on the B-51121. A 5I is the U.S. Navy Pate on the B-5 when one of two things happens: either a fatal outcome or an unexpected rescue. What comes next might change international relationships and establish the guidelines for participation in upcoming airborne encounters. These kinds of incidents are not just they're flashing through the clouds, points in a developing competition between two superpowers of the world. And South China Sea and the larger Indo-Pacific area have turned into the focal point of these high encounters with overlapping stakes. Military posturing and territorial claims and the ongoing existence of aircraft used for reconnaissance in these skies are disputed just as much as the waters beneath the American whaler. The United States conducts military reconnaissance. Aircraft such as the Pate Poseidon are flexible radar control planes outfitted with advanced radar sonar, and these aircraft are surveillance systems, essential for obtaining intelligence, keeping an eye on military operations abroad, and guaranteeing the freedom of movement in international waters. But these kinds of missions, Chinese forces should not be overlooked, especially the Liberation of the People PLAF or the Army Air Force are quick to reply, frequently by deploying interceptors to challenge or shadow these flights. The P because of its powers. The law site says Poseidon is a vital resource in these disputed areas, with anti-submarine capabilities collecting intelligence on warfare, and the aircraft is outfitted with surveillance utilizing a variety of cutting-edge sensors that are able to identify underwater dangers and monitor data on surface vessels from miles away. Systems for gathering can intercept adversaries. Vital information is provided by communications regarding ship deployments and troop movements and operational goals, but the PH Poseidon is frequently brought on missions in close proximity to the Chinese military, increasing hostilities and an already unstable airspace, the uppermost skies. The South China Sea is a maze of China's territorial claims, authority over almost the whole area. With its contentious NH line, this international has rejected the claim courts, but Beijing has not been deterred from artificially militarizing the region. Islands with missile airstrips, radar stations, and systems have altered the South China Sea to become a closely watched and strategically useful area for the U.S. to carry out reconnaissance missions, are more than just regarding intelligence. It's a straightforward contemplation of China's territorial goals and a confirmation of international regulations pertaining to the freedom of Chinese overflight and navigation. The J-11 and J-16 fighter jets are frequently rushed to intercept us, anything from standard shadowing to extremely forceful maneuvers in certain instances of Chinese pilots, including shadowing nearby people in certain instances of Chinese pilots engaging in risky flying near American aircraft, producing stressful confrontations that try the nerves and professionalism of both crews, including interactions are intentional, acting as both a cautionary tale and a chance for China will establish its supremacy in the area. But the dangers are enormous. Mechanical failure or incorrect calculation in close quarters like this could result in a collision in mid-air that causes a major injury, one significant international crisis. The incident took place in December 2022, when a J-11 fighter jet from China intercepted a reconnaissance U.S. RC-135 over the South China Sea. Airplanes within 20 feet of the Chinese jet, an American aircraft's maneuver is characterized as the U.S. military's lack of professionalism and safety officials. But the circumstances did not intensify even more. It highlighted the delicate character of these interactions and the thin path that each side follows to keep the pilots from getting into a fight and the crew that participates in these operations. As pilots, the stakes could not be higher. Are instructed to remain composed under PR pressure while following stringent procedures and refrain from needless escalation. Chinese pilots also work under orders to safeguard their country's perceived integrity of the territory while proving resolve. The outcome is an intricate dance in the sky, where each movement is deliberate, but tense with possible danger, as seen by the US. These missions are necessary in order to preserving a tactical edge in the intelligence from the Indo-Pacific region. During these flights offers vital information about the Chinese military capabilities, actions, and goals. This data not only provides us with defense tactics, but also provides comfort. Allies in the region like Japan, South America's Korea, and the Philippines, forces are dedicated to protecting them and the maintenance of an open and free society. Conversely, China in the Indo-Pacific considers these flights to be provocative. Beijing contends that our presence planes conducting reconnaissance close to its airspace threatens the sovereignty of TRS, and thus the intercepts provide security, a dual function of border protection and conveying a message to the United States, and concerning its readiness, regional neighbors to support its assertions. As the rival between these two superpowers increases, the frequency and intensity of these interactions are probably going to raise both parties significant investments in cutting-edge aircraft stealth technology and further capabilities of electronic warfare. This report includes striking additional proclamations, including global, that depict the threat to world peace, increasing the stakes in the sky, the disputed area. The issue is not simply how to handle these interactions, but whether the existing mechanisms are strong enough to stop a minor incident from developing into a more significant dispute in the end, the skies over the district. There is more to the South China Sea than just airspace, which they reflect from the changing power dynamics in the 21st century. Each flight that was intercepted, every tense radio and close-pass trade is a small part of the larger battle for supremacy in one of the most strategically important areas on Earth. This situation might sound speculative, but comparable incidents have. A Chinese J-11 was already played out in 2014. A U.S. Navy P-8 was intercepted by a fighter jet over the South China Sea. Poseidon, the fighter jet, came within 20 feet of personal computer system. The U.S. aircraft is acting aggressively. This is why the fighter jet came within 20 feet of personal computer system. The U.S. aircraft is acting aggressively. Barrel rolls and risky flying. Near the tips of its wings, the U.S. dubbed the maneuver, "That is unsafe and unprofessional," causing worldwide indignation and a diplomatic Washington-Beijing interaction. A more well-known incident occurred in 2001, when an EP-3 surveillance in the U.S. plane and a Chinese jet collided in mid-air. Battles ensued in the same area as followed up for weeks by the collision led to the demise of the Chinese pilot and made the American crew land on Hainan Island in an emergency where Chinese officials detained them. According to the author, this incident was a lure, highlighting a point in U.S.-China relations, the risks associated with close encounters in controversial airspace in the present. Suppose a USP Poseidon was performing a routine surveillance mission across the globe. South China Sea waters and the sky are calm, the ocean beneath them is clear, but the Chinese J-20 stealth fighter is being warned. Let's watch. There are always simmering tensions without. A Chinese J-20 stealth fighter is being warned, appears on radar, indicating its existence. By the abrupt rise in radio conversation, the jet places itself squarely in front of the American aircraft, shutting the separation until it's only a few feet away from the crew on board, the Poseidon's nose. The American aircraft holds its breath for 1 second. A poor decision could result in catastrophe. Then, a Chinese pilot executes a provocative move that involves making a sharp ascend before the reconnaissance plane, a move called a thump. The Poseidon is rocked by turbulence, and alarms go off, while the crews try to maintain the aircraft's stability. This is not an assault, but it's undoubtedly a message. These interactions are not one-off occurrences. They are a component of a more comprehensive plan that, The actions of the Chinese pilot are intentional, intended to intimidate and establish dominance. This maneuver is not suitable for the U.S. crew. Only a shock to the body, but a reminder of the unstable power dynamics in the area. The P-8 Poseidon